The sun had barely crested over the rooftops of Oak Ridge Estates when Marcus Turner rolled out of bed, the faint hum of morning birds greeting him through the open window. He took a slow breath, savoring the quiet of his property before the world started buzzing with chaos again. Marcus had spent 22 years in law enforcement, the last 6 as chief of police for the county. He'd dealt with hardened criminals, high-stakes cases, and political nonsense, but nothing, compared to the absurdity of his neighborhood's HOA. Ever since he and his wife, Alana, moved into the gated community a few months earlier, the HOA board had been on him for the smallest things: the color of his mailbox, the unauthorized security cameras on his property, even the way his truck was parked in his own driveway. At first, Marcus had laughed it off. He thought maybe they were just overly strict. But it didn't take long to realize there was something uglier under the surface, a group of residents who didn't think he belonged there, even though his house was paid for in cash and his record in public service was spotless. He had caught the sideways looks at meetings, the whispers about certain people changing the neighborhood. Still, Marcus was a man of discipline. He didn't react, he documented. Every notice, every confrontation, every snide remark was logged neatly in a file on his office desk. He knew better than to let emotion dictate his moves. That morning, as he sipped his coffee and adjusted his badge on the counter, his doorbell rang. He wasn't expecting anyone, and Alana had already left for her shift at the hospital. Marcus glanced at the security monitor mounted on the kitchen wall, a habit from years of police work. What he saw made him frown. 2 men stood outside his gate, both wearing black tactical uniforms with Neighborhood Enforcement Division printed across their chests. They had badges clipped to their belts, though not the kind he recognized. One of them was holding a clipboard, the other stood rigid, hand near his holster like he was waiting for trouble. Marcus muttered to himself, "You've got to be kidding me." He stepped outside, calm and measured. The taller man, a pale, nervous-looking guy in his 40s, cleared his throat and said, "Sir, we're here under authority of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. You're being cited for multiple violations and failure to comply with enforcement orders. You're to come with us for processing." Marcus tilted his head. "Processing? You mean to tell me the WA sent you to arrest me?" The second man, younger, stockier, and trying way too hard to look tough, interjected, "You can come willingly or we can make this difficult. WA rules are legally binding, sir." Marcus chuckled quietly, crossing his arms. "I've heard a lot of bad interpretations of the law in my time, but that's a new one." He stepped closer, his tone calm but authoritative. "Gentlemen, why don't you go ahead and show me your credentials? Department ID, peace officer certification, anything that says you have arrest authority in this county." The taller one hesitated. "We're private community enforcers. Contracted by the board. We have jurisdiction here." Marcus's jaw tightened. He'd seen this kind of nonsense before. Wannabes who thought a vest and a patch gave them power. "You have no jurisdiction, and no authority to detain anyone. You're impersonating law enforcement, which, in case you didn't know, is a felony." The younger man scoffed. "We were told you'd be combative." "That figures." Marcus smiled faintly. "Combative? No, I just know the law better than the people who think they can twist it." He reached slowly into his back pocket, watching both men stiffen, their hands inching toward their holsters. But instead of pulling out a weapon, Marcus produced his leather badge wallet. He flipped it open and let the gold shield glint in the morning light. "Marcus Turner, Chief of Police, Oak County. Now, would either of you like to repeat what you just said about taking me in?" The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. The taller man's face drained of color as his eyes darted between the badge and Marcus's steely expression. The younger one tried to recover, muttering, We were just following orders from the WA board." They said what?" Marcus interrupted, stepping forward. His voice was still calm, but his presence filled the space like thunder before a storm. "That they could create their own enforcement division. That they could send untrained, unlicensed individuals to impersonate officers. You realize how serious that is?" The 2 men exchanged a panicked glance. Marcus continued, "You're lucky I'm not cuffing you both right now. But you will hand over those fake badges, and you will tell me exactly who on the WA board authorized this stunt." They hesitated, but Marcus's stare left no room for argument. Reluctantly, they unclipped their badges and handed them over. Marcus turned them over in his hands, shaking his head at the cheap engraving, Oak Ridge Enforcement Division. He took out his phone and dialed his deputy, Sergeant Lewis. "Hey, I've got 2 impersonators at my residence claiming to be WA enforcement. Send a unit and bring the recorder. We're going to get statements. The taller man's composure cracked. Wait, no, you don't need to, we didn't mean. Oh, I think you did, Marcus said. And don't bother running. The cameras on my gate have you both on film from the moment you arrived. Within 10 minutes, a marked patrol SUV rolled up the street. The real officers stepped out, taking control of the situation while Marcus stood off to the side, arms folded. The neighbors had begun peeking through blinds, some even stepping out onto their lawns to see what the commotion was. The same HOA board members who had spent months harassing Marcus now watched from their driveways, wide-eyed and pale. One of them, a woman named Karen Mitchell, the HOA president, came storming down the street in her designer slippers, shouting, "Chief Turner, this is a misunderstanding. They were just supposed to deliver a notice." "Then maybe you should have told them not to dress like federal agents," Marcus replied sharply. "You authorized an arrest attempt, Karen. These men said they were acting under your direction. That's conspiracy to commit impersonation, intimidation, and unlawful detainment." Her jaw dropped. I didn't mean. Save it for the county prosecutor, Marcus said, motioning toward his officers. The two fake enforcers were led away in handcuffs, their faces flushed with humiliation. Marcus turned back to Karen, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You wanted to make an example of me. You thought a few fake uniforms would scare me into compliance. But I don't scare easily, and I don't play politics with justice." Karen swallowed hard, her bravado melting into silence. Marcus walked back toward his house, the flashing red and blue lights reflecting off his gate. As he opened the door, he looked once more over his shoulder at the stunned neighborhood. Next time, he called out, maybe the HOA should stick to mowing lawns and painting fences, not pretending to be the law. Inside, he poured himself another cup of coffee, calm once again. It was just another day, another reminder that respect can't be demanded through power plays or intimidation. It's earned, and Marcus Turner had earned his the right way.